Hello and welcome to a special podcast today. We're going to go into mastering correct score betting and trading on Betfair, and we're going to do this for 2025 because we've just hit a new year and it's going to be amazing. Okay, so I'm going to get into the podcast now. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you do, like, subscribe, comment, do all those good things. That lets me know that you'll want me to do more of these podcasts in video form. Usually I just do them as podcasts. You can go and check out the Betfair Trading Community.com podcast. Just search Betfair Trading Community Podcast, and it is hosted at all good podcast providers and perhaps some bad ones as well. So welcome back to the podcast. We're going to dive deep into sports betting strategies today. As I've said, I'm your host Martin, and we're going to tackle one of the most popular trading strategies, which is the correct score market. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or you're just starting out, understanding correct score betting can add an exciting dimension to your wagering experience. Before we jump in, a quick reminder: always bet responsibly, set limits, know your boundaries, and seek help if you feel like it's becoming a problem. Never bet more than you can afford to lose is kind of the mantra I always say you should stick to, and hopefully you are. Let's get into it. So I've got a list of things here I'm going to go through. We're really going to go through it systematically, and we're going to master correct score trading today. So, section 1, what is correct score betting or trading? In simple terms, it's a wager where you predict the exact final score of a sporting event. Now, we're going to talk today about football. That's the thing we focus on, but you could do this on other sports as well. Like tennis is quite a good one where you can do set score betting and things like that, and score of the set. But unlike other types of bets where you're predicting the outcome as in a win, lose or a draw, correct score betting requires that you forecast a precise number of goals each team will score and where. Okay, so for example, if you bet on the correct score market on a 2-1 result, you need to pick which team's going to win 2-1, and if they win 2-1 you win your bet, and if they don't you lose. It's as simple as that. So it sounds very straightforward. It's not quite as straightforward as that. The challenge and perhaps the allure of correct score betting lies in its difficulty, because there are countless possible score combinations. The odds are typically higher, meaning the payouts can be substantial if you get it right, but obviously you can go on runs where you get quite a few wrong. And that's something to be aware of. Now, whether you're straight betting with correct score and you're just placing a bet and letting it run, or whether you're trading where you're kind of reducing the variance and risk somewhat by taking profits and loss at certain points, you will still have this kind of situation where you need to get close to that correct score regularly to make money in this market. But there are some ways to do that, and we'll go through this as we go. Why choose correct score betting? Number 2. And you might be wondering this: why should I choose correct score betting over more straightforward options like, let's say, the match outcome, who's going to win, or over under bets? Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons, and we've talked a little bit about a couple of them. But number 1, higher payouts. As I mentioned, the odds are longer, so if you predict the score correctly, you can get a significantly higher payout, especially if you're letting it run. Enhanced engagement. Focusing on the exact score keeps you engaged throughout the match, adding a layer of excitement. And strategic depth. It allows bettors and traders to apply detailed analysis and strategies, making the experience more intellectually stimulating. And that is right. If you bet on correct score, you will feel that if you start getting it right, if you start nailing that market and making money on it, you feel like a bit of a genius, because you're like, well, I'm like Mystic Meg. I know what's going to happen. Predicting a win or a loss is quite a bit easier. If I tell you, well, Man City are going to win today and their odds are 1.5, well, they're probably going to win. Yeah. But if I tell you Man City are going to win 3-1 and the odds are 10.0, then that's much more of an achievement and much more profitable if you get it correct. So let's get into some strategies, because I think this is probably why most of you are tuning in. You know what correct score is, you know some of the advantages and disadvantages, but what you're really interested in here is, what strategies can I use with correct score betting? Now, I have done some videos on correct score where I go and show you all of this in live form. Obviously, in a podcast, I'm not going to do that because the podcast audience won't be able to see it. But go and search, if you want, on the YouTube channel, search for Betfair Trading Community and search correct score strategy, and stuff will come up. I'm going to talk through some of it now. We're going to look at the key statistics that I think you should look at when you're looking at the correct score market. Now, the first thing I look at is the frequency of common scores the teams play. Okay, so let's say Man United are playing Norwich today, yeah? And I can see Man United's last 10 home games and Norwich's last 10 away games, because Man United are at home, Norwich are away. So I want to see home for home, away for away. Now, in the betfairtradingcommunity.com software, this is really easy to do, obviously. You can click on the match and it will show you the percentages of the correct scores. Now, let's say that I go through that and I notice, oh, hang on, 1-1 happens 25% of the time. These teams, in their last 10 home for United, 10 away for Norwich, 25% of the time, quarter of the time, obviously, 1-1 has happened. Okay, well, I know the odds of 25% are 3-1. Or 4.0 on Betfair. I also know that this scoreline 1-1 at the start of a match is nearly always 6.0 or above. So there could be some potential value in this as an opening gambit, as something I might look to trade, because they have a high frequency of 1-1 scorelines. But what I like to do, and I think this is perhaps more of a trading perspective, but I suppose it could be more of an outright betting one as well if you wanted to let it run and kind of hedge a few options. But in this instance, what I like to do is look for one or two other score lines that are very common but match the 1-1, and I'll explain it. So let's say I see that 1-1 happens 25% of the time. Great. I know there's probably going to be value in that scoreline. And then look at another scoreline, 2-1 to Man United, and that scoreline has happened 20% of the time. Okay, that means that I've got 45% of the outcomes covered if I back 1-1 and 2-1. What I like about this as an idea is that the scorelines are matched. So a match, let's say the match goes like this. Man United go 1-0 up. Well, if it's at the right time, maybe around half time, the 1-1 odds will probably shorten, or they'll at least be similar. The 2-1 odds will definitely shorten. So you're already in a good position. Say Norwich equalise. This is kind of the dream scenario. 1-1. Brilliant. Now, one of your scorelines is already hitting. The odds will definitely start to shorten. But also, 2-1 will shorten tremendously because Man United are probably favourites. So in this scenario, 2-1 will actually probably be quite short odds and maybe coming down to that 5-6 mark along with the 1-1. And 2-1 often is 10, 11.0, something like that plus. So you know you'd be getting good value in that situation. But this is what I'm talking about with frequency. You want score lines that connect with each other and make sense. Now, let's say that the other scoreline I'm looking at is, I can see that 1-1's a popular score, but I can also see that 3-0's a popular score. Let's say 3-0 also has 25%. So you could look at it and go, well, if I cover 1-1 and 3-0, I'm covering 50% of what's happened, and I'll get good odds on 3-0. The problem is, 1-1 and 3-0 aren't greatly connected. They're a little bit connected, and I'll tell you how, but they're not greatly connected. So, in the scenario of 1-1, if Norwich score first, that's probably good for your 1-1 trade because United are very likely to get an equaliser before Norwich score again. So that's a good situation. However, your 3-0 bet is already dead in the water. You see the problem? Whereas, on my original example, if Norwich go 1-0 up, so it goes 0-1, your 1-1 bet is in a good position and your 2-1 bet is now in a really good position as well because the market might expect, well, United is still going to win, and if they're going to win, they're probably going to have to get to 2-1 at some point because if they concede again, they're probably not going to win the game. So in that scenario, you're in a really good position. Do you see the difference between the two? Now, if Man United go 1-0 up, that's okay for your 1-1 bet, depending on how late in the game it is. It's also very good for your 3-0 bet. So that's a scenario where they're a little bit connected, but you've really got a danger if Norwich score first. To the extent, if Norwich score first and it's early, you're looking at a loss on the market, and it's going to be very difficult. The only situation really you can recover is that Man United make it 1-1 late on, and then the odds will shorten on that. You hopefully be able to make enough green to cover your loss on the 3-0, which you've already had. But you want to get in, if you're trading especially, you want to get in a scenario where you can green up on both outcomes. So if I've backed 1-1 and 2-1 and it goes 1-0 Man United and both prices come in, I'm greening up on both outcomes. I'm not having to take a loss anywhere. And the next goal does affect me. You know, if it goes 2-0, my 1-1 bet's gone. Okay? So I quite like that situation. Another situation I quite like, let's say you're looking for 3 options. What about 1-1, 2-1 and 1-2? You see that Norwich have had 1-2 20% of the time. So you've got 1-1 at 25%. You've got 2-1 to Man United at 20%. But you've also got 1-2 to Norwich at 20%. Suddenly you've got 65% of the outcomes in the last 10 home games for United and 10 away for Norwich covered in 3 bets. And if it goes 1-1 in the match, the next goal doesn't hurt you because it could be dreamland. You know, let's say it's 1-1 70 minutes in. Well, you're in a really good spot here because the 1-1 odds would have come in significantly, and the 2-1 and 1-2 odds would still come in because they know that if their goal goes that way, that's probably how it's going to finish so late in the game. And you'll be able to take a big green. And this is the important thing with any trading strategy. We're not necessarily saying, oh, well, it says 65%, this is how it's going to finish, that's how it's going to finish. That's not really what we're looking for here. What we're looking for is a trading opportunity. And we see that these scorelines are quite frequent. So there's a good chance that we're going to get towards one of those in a match like this. Okay? So that should kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how you can start to go about thinking about a Betfair trading strategy regarding the correct score market. Again, this is going to be so much easier if you use something like betfairtradingcommunity.com to make your selections, to be able to put filters in, create a strategy, get your selections each day for that based on your criteria. Dreamland really makes it so much easier. But here's the thing. You start to think about that, you start to give yourself a bit of a leg up on the market, because a lot of the market, when they're betting on correct score, they're just going, oh, well, I think Man City are going to win easily today, so I just back 4-0. And there's not a lot, with a lot of people, there's not much more thought than that. And that's just the truth of Betfair trading. So the way to give yourself a leg up is to really think about your trades, think about why you're doing it, look for patterns, look for common score lines. That is my favorite way to trade the correct score market. But there are a few other factors you're going to want to consider, which I'll get into now as I've listed them here. Now, we've talked a little bit about analysing team form, but I'm going to put that as number 1. I still want to see the team form. You know, are Man United, if I'm going to be backing Man United, let's say the common scoreline's 1-1, 2-1. Well, do Man United concede a lot of goals, and do they win a lot of games? Because if they don't, 2-1's not an amazing scoreline to back. So you want to kind of try and marry form with correct score common outcomes. The second one is head-to-head statistics. Now, these are quite difficult sometimes because historical head-to-head matches may be very different. You know, if I go to Norwich Man United's last 10 games, well, Norwich haven't been in the Premier League every season, so you're going to be going back years and years. But if you've got teams who do play in the same league every year, you can maybe look at their last 4 or 5 head-to-head games and see, are there any patterns there? And again, you can do this in the Betfair Trading Community software, which makes it so much easier, saves you so much time. But are there any patterns between the head-to-head statistics where you go, okay, it's quite clear here, these teams often have a 1-1, or Man United often win this game 2-1. Or Man United win, Norwich lose. Those kinds of things are going to help you assess whether you make a correct score trade on this market. The next thing to look at is injury news. Really important one that I think a lot of people overlook. Check to see that the players who normally play are playing, especially the goal scorers. Look, if you want 2-1, you need 3 goals. Well, we know that on average in football, the average amount of goals is just around that, between 2 and 3. That's why the market goes for over 2.5 goals as kind of the midpoint. And often on an over 2.5 goals odds will be the closest ones to evens on both sides of the market. The reason for that is that most of the time matches end in 2 or 3 goals. So we know that the average, when it's spread out, it's going to be around 2.5, 2.6. It will vary league to league and season to season. But the important thing to know there is that you're going to want goals to be scored. And if the top scorers are out, if a team who's not had good defenders playing, suddenly they get their whole back line back, things like that, and this does happen quite often, then you're going to want to be careful here. Another thing with news is look at managers. If the manager's just got fired, has the manager been replaced? That can affect the teams because they might play a different style now. They might be playing a different way. The players might be motivated again. Lots of things can happen. We often see that new manager bounce that people talk about. We often see that happening. Number 4, playing styles. Another thing you can consider. Teams that play offensively or attackingly are more likely to have higher scoring games, while defensive teams might lead to lower scores. And if you know how many goals these teams get on average, you can start to work out, well, if I expect this team to score 2 goals and this team to score 1, 2-1 might be a good scoreline for me to back. That's kind of a way to start thinking about betting and trading the correct score market. And then we're going to think about things like home advantage. Luckily with the Betfair Trading Community software, it focuses on the home match for the home teams and away match for the away teams. And this is critical because home advantage is such a big factor in football. And you'll see it every week where home teams will be shorter odds than they would be if they were playing away against the same team. There's a reason for that, right? And some people don't like this. Some people will say like, well, I like to look at the away form anyway. Okay, that's fine. But the problem is, some teams just have such different form away from home. And do you really want to go, oh, well, this team just lost 3-0 away from home. Of course they're going to lose their next home game. Really? Does anyone actually believe that that is a significant factor? Because you will see matches where teams get trounced away from home, come back the next week and win easily. Time and time and time and time again when they're playing at home. And that's because the form is so different between the two. Remember, combining these factors increases your chances of success. And that's what you really want to be thinking about as a Betfair trader. Think about, what can my chance of success be here? And there's no guaranteed method, obviously, for success. So try these things out, test them, see what works for you. Always approach betting with caution. And as I said before, and I'll repeat it, never bet what you can't afford to lose. Okay. Number 4, common mistakes to avoid. So this is going to be really important, right? Because we want to avoid the common mistakes. So first off, even with the best strategies, bettors can fall into common traps. Here are a few mistakes to watch out for. Number 1, ignoring the odds. Now, if you've got a situation where you're looking at a scoreline and you go, wow, 20% of the time, these teams have this outcome, that's great. I know that 20% in odds is 4-1 and in decimal odds is 5.0. If you ignore that factor and you go and look at a correct scoreline and the odds are 5.0 and you go, well, I know the chance is 5.0, you shouldn't bet, right? You shouldn't bet that scenario. You always have to be looking for value. As I always say, value is king, right? You want to get value in the market. You want to get odds that are bigger than you think they should be when your backings, as you're inevitably going to be doing in a correct score market, you're probably going to be backing, right? Most people have backing strategies for the correct score market. Well, if you're backing, then surely in that scenario, you want to be getting a higher price than it should be. That's how you make money, right? That's how you get value in any walk of life, right? If I go into Tesco today and I find that they're selling, I want some Pepsi and I find that they're selling cans for 1p, well, I know I'm getting huge value there. I'm probably going to buy quite a lot. However, if they're selling cans for £10 a pop, I know it's really bad value and I'm not going to take it. It's the same with Betfair trading. You need to start trying to spot where the value is and work out, do I think this scoreline is going to happen often? If not, how often will it happen? And if it doesn't happen that often, am I getting big enough odds to make this a worthwhile bet or trade? That's something to really think about. I think a lot of people ignore odds, and it's a massive mistake when you're betting or you're trading on Betfair. Overlooking external factors. This is another common error. So one that's I'm talking about weather conditions, and I'm wary that the sun's now blaring on my face and I haven't fully shut the curtain because who expected sun? It's like January when I'm recording this, right? It's the end of January. Why is there sun? It's the UK. What's going on? Well, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. Weather factors have an influence. Now, if it's icy, if it's raining really heavily, that tends to suggest there might not be as many goals. Players are cold, they're not enjoying it as much. Whereas if it's kind of this weather, sunny in the winter, it's actually quite nice conditions to play in. You know, this will keep you warm enough when you're running around that you won't be cold, but you're not going to get boiling either because, well, it's January and I live up north, so it never gets warm. But the point is that you can't ignore factors like the weather, refereeing decisions. You know, look at the referee. Has the referee, you know, now this isn't one I tend to look at, to be honest, but this is one you could look at. If you only have 1 or 2 games, you're like, I want to do some further research. That's something to look at. Does the ref give a lot of red cards? Red cards have just such a huge factor in correct score markets because they change the game totally. And they change what you're expecting to happen. Because you were betting and trading based on it being 11v11. Now it's 11v10 or 10v11. And you're in a situation where you are now trading a situation you didn't plan for pre-match, or most people wouldn't plan for. What are you going to do? Do you take the loss if there's a loss to be taken? Do you just get out? I mean, I'd probably advise you do. But again, that's something you want to test and see what works for you. Let's get on to number 3 of this section, chasing losses. Now, it's always tempting, and I get this, and this is a general one, I could say this for every strategy, it's always tempting to increase your bets to recover any losses you make. But this can lead to real bad financial issues. And the correct score market, probably not as bad for this one because the odds are quite big. So I don't know. I've not heard of many people chasing that much, but I'm sure it happens. Don't bet more just because you lost your last bet. Don't try and recover money that way because it's a cycle. And what happens is that, what will happen? So let's say I bet £100 on the correct score market and I let it run and I lost £100. And now I'm like, well, I need to make the £100 back. So I'm going to bet more. I want to make a profit. Okay, on the next one, I'm going to bet 200. Oh no, that one lost. So I'm going to bet 400. And it cycles like this. Now, what will happen a lot of the time is you will make that money back by doing it. So what will happen is you'll bet that 200 and you'll make that 100 back and you'll feel good. Oh, I made that money back. Brilliant. Never going to do that again. Knowing full well, as soon as it happens again, you do it. And what happens is eventually you will hit that bad run. And when you do, you will wipe yourself out because you've increased your risk every time. And there's really no need to do it. And if you hadn't done it, your bankroll would very much still be intact, even in a bad run. And also, it will then give you a chance to get out of that situation by keep trading the same amount. And if you're good, if you're profitable, if you're good at what you're doing, you will make money. And that's the thing with Betfair Trading that people forget. If you have a profitable strategy, it will make money over time. It might not make money today because that's the way variance and luck work in sport. But skill does override the luck in the long run. And it's really important that we know that and kind of follow that and understand that. And then lack of research. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast, this shouldn't be a big problem for you. But some people just don't do the research that's needed. And it's costly. It can cost you a lot of money. So make sure you do the research that I've suggested. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about tools and statistics and resources now. You're going to want to use something to aid your correct score betting journey. Now, I suggest if you're not a member of Betfair Trading Community, you go and sign up to that straight away because that software is designed to help people find things like correct score trading strategies, give you your selections each day, cut so much time out of the research every day, and basically, give it to you on a plate once you've created your strategy. And so, you can go and then join in with a forum, speak to other traders, develop ideas around that. I've got a thing I'm going to be doing with a football challenge soon, which should help kind of really help people who are trying to create strategies and not sure how to do it or what works or what's been working well. But being a part of something like that is huge, right? Because Betfair trading or betting can be a very lonely endeavor. I don't actually know anyone locally who does what I do. I just don't. Now, I know a lot of people across the UK, obviously. I know a lot of people back home. But I've been living up here over 10 years and I don't know anyone else who trades on Betfair. So, and that's just from meeting people obviously randomly. Now, obviously, I know a few people around the area who I've met up with. I've met up with members and things and had coffees with them. But I'm talking about just friends, people like that you meet, randomly, like say at work or when you're, what I do, play tennis. I meet a lot of people that way. They always ask what do I do, and then I explain, that Betfair Trading is part of what I do for a living, and they get really interested in hearing about that. So it's really good here to look at tools that can help you, because it helps give you an edge on the market. So I've already mentioned Betfair Trading Community. Now, one I like for the in-play stats is Bet365, because it gives you, basically it's free, so you can go and check all the in-play stats. There's a lot of stats that they use in play, like from Opta and things like that, I think. So that's the kind of thing you can use for some of the statistical stuff. There's obviously stat sites you can use, you can go and check out. Betting calculators, really handy when you're trying to work stuff out. Forums and communities. I've already talked about Betfair Trading Communities forum. That's a really good place for traders to go and learn and work with each other to become better traders. And then betting software. Now, Betfair Trading Community is a software that helps you create strategies. Some people also like to have software like BetAngel, where it can place the bets for you and do bots and things like that. So that's another option. You can go and check those out. There's lots of options out there that you can check out. But with Correct Score, just make sure you have a plan before you do it and you know what you're going to execute. We talked a bit about responsible betting. I'm going to go through a few points on this just to make sure that you don't lose your bank. Set a budget. Decide how much you're willing to bet and stick to it. Educate yourself about the risks involved. Take breaks when you need to, and seek help if needed. I've talked a lot about bankroll management before, so I'm not going to go into that today. But that's something you can go, and if you Google bankroll and bet staking, Betfair Trading Community, you can actually read my article talking about bankroll management exactly. So yeah, just be careful with what you're doing, obviously. And that's it. That's a wrap on today's episode of Betfair Trading Community. And Correct Score Betting offers an exciting way to engage with your favourite sport, football. Well, most people's favourite sport, right? But like all forms of betting, it requires knowledge, strategy, responsibility. I hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable insights to enhance your betting experience and given you ideas on strategies you can create or angles you can look at when you trade the Correct Score market. If you've enjoyed the video today, let me know, comment, like and subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really helps the channel. It means that I know you like this kind of podcast format as well on the video, and I will obviously keep doing them. And obviously, if you're listening on the podcast, brilliant. You guys are why the podcast has been successful and got so many, I think like hundreds of episodes now on it. And so many of you listen every week, and I'm just flattered, we're in a niche industry, and it's just great to see such great support. So thank you guys for your support over the years. Until next time, bet smart and stay informed. And I hope you make some money trading on Betfair.